What is the biggest lie told to people in human history? If you work hard, you'll have a good, happy life. It's more about where you put the effort every day. You can put in half the effort of someone and end up 10 times better than them. That you have to do things. You don't. We made the rules. They're all made up. All the borders are just lines we scribbled on maps after fighting over it. All the laws are just things we kinda agreed sound good. You have choices about so many more things than you realize. Not necessarily a lie, but people have the misconception that Europeans invented slavery in the 15th century. Slavery is something that has existed across the world for millennia. And there were large-scale slave trade networks established by other powers, such as the trans-Saharan slave trade established by the Islamic Caliphate after their conquest of North Africa. Violence never solved anything. Violence has been used throughout human history as a means of achieving a goal. Even today in civilized society, jail involuntary confinement as a form of violence is used as a remedy for crime. Laws and rules are backed up with some form of a threat of violence. Capitalism isn't perfect, but it's the best system we've got. If that were true, how come we spend so much time worrying and paying people to murder and destabilize every democratically elected socialist government? The military-industrial complex is basically a money grab fueled by having to fight the right-wing dictators we put into office, and making new weapons to compete with the ones that we sell to our enemies. I feel like the most recent one is this idea of the American dream, that anybody from the lowliest street sweeper can be a successful billionaire if they just work hard enough. The older I get, the more transparent that becomes as a veiled attempt to propagate capitalism by keeping the fast food workers and trash collectors of the population scurrying about, working as hard as they can to serve the higher classes. It's so obvious when you think about it for more than a few minutes, but it took me an embarrassingly long time to realize that the lucky few who have actually achieved this are the exceptions, not the rule. That recycling will help the planet. Even if my own recycling efforts were sufficient, a massive number of waste processing companies simply mix recyclables with their regular trash because it's more cost-effective, even if you pay extra for recycling. Not to mention, it's an insignificant drop in the bucket compared to unregulated corporate waste. People of era before ours were so stupid, weird, gross, and immoral. People of current era are so much wiser. Greeks talking about Persians, medieval Europeans talking about Romans, Enlightenment Europeans talking about medieval Europeans, 20th century talking about Victorians. Roughly half of the dumb stuff people did believed in the past, stories or fabrications made up in the period after. Romans didn't normalize bulimia, medievals didn't think the earth was flat or argue about how many angels could dance on the head of a pin. Victorians weren't any more aroused by ankles than anyone else. There are so many, but off the top of my head, I'd say cultural norms fueled by capitalism, like giving diamonds to your wife. If you think that's a fundamental aspect of culture, I have news for you. That's the Diamond Industries ad campaign, and it was created in World War II, Cold War, all that, diamonds are a girl's best friend, and diamonds are forever, stuff is all capitalism desperately appealing to the masses, and we fell for it. You'd be surprised how many times it comes down to capitalism wants you to buy a product or service. Let's look at two sides of politics, one with capitalism, and the other end being socialism, communism. Trickle-down economics. That, and on the other end, all you need to do is look at the infrastructure in Cuba and Cyprus, and you can see the other side of the spectrum and how communism, socialism affects a people. For example, in Cuba, the farmer doesn't own the cow. He takes care of the cow, and the government comes and takes the milk. It's not up to the farmer if he wants to sell milk, make butter, or make cheese. As a result, in Cuba, it is nearly impossible to buy butter in stores because the government doesn't produce enough of it. The farmer ends up being the caretaker of the cow and owns nothing that comes out of it. In a medical school, a janitor earns the same as a doctor or the person who runs the school. As a result, it's common for doctors to take second jobs as cab drivers to make ends meet. In Cyprus, since the government assigned your profession, good luck finding a plumber. When you did find one, there was no competition and no fear of losing their job. Most likely, their work would be shoddy, leaving exposed pipes, knowing that they could do the minimum work possible since they didn't have to do a good job. There was no threat of them losing their job. Take 40 years of this attitude, and the infrastructure is poor and depressing, not only in houses but all over the island. No threat of competition or fear of losing your job, or penalties for not doing your job ends up creating a place where no one wants to live. As a result, in Cuba and Cyprus, people are resigned to the fact that it's not worth hoping. It not only won't get better, but it can't get better, so it's best to become accustomed to your place in the world and be resigned that nothing will ever change. Thanks for watching the video. Don't forget to like and subscribe to our channel so you don't miss out on the best Reddit stories.